Welcome back to Cleethorpes AIRSHOW, where we're getting ready for the flight of the Vulcan, the world's last flying Vulcan bomber on its first visit to this region. But first, when we talk about movie stars, we usually mean the likes of George Clooney or Angelina Jolie. Today, the two stars of our show have appeared in films and on TV programmes such as Pearl Harbor, Battle of Britain, Waking the Dead and Foyle's War. Flying today from the historic aircraft collection are the Hawker Nimrod and the Hawker Hurricane. Here they are in action.
Now running in from the right is Halves. Dave Harvey flying the historic aircraft collection Hurricane Mark 12. It was realised by the RAF that they needed to have an aircraft that could hold 8 303 machine guns in order to stand a chance of bringing a bomber down in a single pass. And this particular Hurricane was built in Canada under licence by the Canadian Car and Foundry Company, and this features a 12-gun wing. There are the standard 8 in the positions just outside the wheel well, and there are 2 further guns in each wing outside of those, sort of more towards the tip. This aircraft was the first Hurricane to return to Malta for the Malta Air Display to commemorate the, I believe, the 60th anniversary of the Siege of Malta. And the Hurricanes worked very hard before eventually being supplemented by Spitfires that were flown off carriers in the Mediterranean to get to the island. Ladies and gentlemen, Flight Lieutenant Dave Harvey in the historic aircraft collection Hawker Hurricane. The aircraft you see now is one of the naval variants, the Hawker Nimrod. This one is a Hawker Nimrod 2. This aeroplane was seen to be on charge at Royal Naval Air Station Lyon-Solent in 1939, where it was thought to be an instructional aircraft for the apprentices there. It eventually found its way to a scrapyard in Kent, where the remains were eventually recovered and rebuilt in the 1990s.
I'm here with Crew Manager Harry Hall. So can you tell me what your role is in the fire service?
We're here combined with all the other rescue services such as the Heart Team and Lives and all the other services, the ambulance. Whether it be fires or any other disasters that we can help deal with.
So can you explain what kind of support you guys offer to an event like today?
We provide the amount of appliances that we think is necessary for any eventualities, and we just keep the crews on alert, ready to leap into action as necessary.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well I can see that you're very busy, so thank you ever so much for talking to us. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
It's time for one of the highlights of the festival. In 1982, conflict erupted when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher sent a task force to reclaim the islands, and it was then the Vulcan made its legendary flight. The aircraft was involved in the longest ever bombing mission from Britain to the Falklands, spanning over 8,000 miles and lasting a staggering 15 hours and 45 minutes. Now based at Robin Hood Airport, we went along to meet the team who are keeping the last ever Vulcan soaring through the skies.
The Vulcan was designed as one of Britain's nuclear deterrents in the 60s and 70s, and I say we have the Rolls-Royce Olympus engines on these, which is the forerunner to actually Concorde's engines. The Vulcan used to carry the nuclear bomb, the Blue Danube, then it was upgraded to the Blue Steel nuclear missile, but it could also use conventional bombs, and the Vulcans were actually used during the Falklands, dropping 21 1,000-pound conventional bombs. This is a special aircraft. 558 was actually the first ever B2 into military service on the 1st of July 1960, and then again obviously she was the last ever flying Vulcan, coming out of service in 93. And I say I've had dealings with her in the 80s, 90s and noughties, and now in the teens.
Before an air show, we'll be there about 2 or 3 hours before the aircraft flies. We'll be there and service it, recharge all the gas systems. And there's about an hour of actually, once the crew are there, so there's an hour of checks to do before it actually taxis. It's a challenge. You've got to use your brain. It's not, you can't just press a button and the aeroplane will tell you what's wrong. You've actually got to work out why it's not doing what it should do.
The aircraft was originally designed as a nuclear bomber, and say it used to have the flight between sort of 50 and 60,000 feet, which is sort of twice the height as your normal holiday flights you used to go across. And so the visibility out of the aircraft is very restricted. Obviously they were flying at altitude, obviously they didn't need much visibility, and if God forbid they actually dropped the nuclear bomb with the flash, they wanted as least amount of windows as possible because of the flash. In the old days, there used to be a crew of 5. They used to have the navigator radar on the left-hand seat, who had the bombing radar and the bombing control panel. Centre seat was your navigator plotter, he with all the maps, charts and navigational aids. And then the air electronics officer in the seat I'm in now, with all the electrical power on the sidewall and the electronic countermeasures on the rear wall, and obviously you have the pilot and co-pilots who had a full crew. Nowadays all we have now is the 2 pilots and the air electronics officer for when we actually fly and do the displays.
To own and operate, fly, maintain and insure the aircraft, it's £2 million a year, but the insurance alone is £164,000. And we burn quite a lot of fuel when we fly. When we fly, for the first hour the Vulcan costs about £12,000 to fly, and then every hour after that it's about £6,000. The Vulcan aircraft, as people at air shows know, is a very iconic aircraft. It's a heritage aircraft, it's unique in the world. In fact now the Vulcan is the only British 4-engine jet capable of flight anywhere in the world. So she's globally unique.
We put a question out to supporters and we asked them, do you want us to go on? And the response was incredible. 97% of people said that we needed to continue to fly the Vulcan. And with that kind of support behind you, it buoys us up. But I will say this about the team. There are only 17 full-time employees of the Vulcan. And I would say the one characteristic we all have is that we're all stubborn. In addition, though, to the employed people at the Vulcan, we've got this fantastic army of volunteers. Here in the hangar, I'd say I've got, a team that's second to none. They give up their spare time, their money, to come here to work every day to really try to get more people involved and inspired by the Vulcan.
The Vulcan was designed by Roy Chadwick, the man who had previously brought us the Lancaster. And the prototype Vulcan flew in 1952, just 11 years after the Lancaster. That's just to give you some sort of idea how great and rapid the pace of change was in the wartime years and the late 1940s. The Vulcan was one of 3 V-bombers. The V-bomber force was designed to be Britain's nuclear deterrent in the late 50s. There was the Valiant, the Victor and the Vulcan. The Vulcan was the only Delta of the 3, and initial experiments were made with smaller scale versions called the Avro 707, an experimental aircraft of which one I believe still exists up at Cosford. The Vulcan is existing entirely on donations. It costs an awful lot of money to keep this aeroplane in the air. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the incredibly impressive Vulcan.
It's been a long time. I grew up here and vaguely remember as a young kid hearing them screaming overhead, and it's been a long time since we've seen one, so it was pretty special, wasn't it, mate?
It's unique, I think, isn't it, really? There's a lot in the news at the moment about keeping it in the air and the cost and all that sort of thing, so I think we wanted to grab the opportunity today to really see it. You know, hopefully it won't disappear, but yeah, it was a great sight, brilliant.
It's just fantastic, the best thing I've ever seen.
One of Samuel's favourite words sums it up, and it's awesome.
It's awesome!
It's nice to see things like that in Cleethorpes, it's good.
I think it's brilliant. It's really brought the people in, hasn't it?
We liked it, Cleethorpes, don't we? And we like air shows.
Better than anything we've ever seen before, and it's all free. People would have paid thousands for that. Cracking stuff.
It's been a fantastic festival of flight, with visitors from across the region coming to the East Coast in Cleethorpes.
It's been a great day for everybody. Highlight for me is the Spitfire and Hurricane, always love to see them. The Lancaster was fantastic, and everybody loves the Vulcan.
And I absolutely loved the flight simulator. Thanks for watching.
Bye.